Good afternoon. Welcome to our show. I'm your host, Melissa Ridgen. Well, breaking up is hard to do, or so the song goes, but breaking up with when kids are involved is often a whole other level of hell. Parents battling over custody and visitation, families forced to choose sides. Sometimes it results in family members being completely cut off from the kids. And as it stands, the only option for people to sort out this custody and access is in a provincial courtroom. Today, we are putting family court alternatives in focus. What if there was another way? What if it was rooted in our traditions and in our communities? There's restorative justice circles to sort out criminal matters, but what if there was traditional circles for separating couples to hash out co-parenting arrangements? It's an interesting concept. Of course, this is a call-in show, and we always love to hear from you. If there's something that you want to add to discussion or share, you can give us a call. Our phone lines are open. Call us toll-free at 1-877-647-2786. You can also comment on our live feed on the APTN News Facebook page. Our first guest is Lauren. He is a grandfather in Terrace, BC. He's a member of the Nisga'a Nation. We aren't sharing his last name, hoping to maintain a little bit of privacy for his grandkids who share his name. Lauren has been on a hunger strike for 22 days and counting over access to his 9- and 3-year-old grandsons. He's taken to social media over the issue and says that he has heard from so many others across the country in similar situations. All he wants to do is be a grandpa. He spoke with APTN's Lee Wilson. Take a look.
This is actually a guideline about bonding with my oldest grandson, who is 9. It shows that all the contact we had with him from birth, celebrating his birthdays, Christmases, and everything he did, we attended and were part of his life. And I just wanted to show the bond that we have. I think it's very important, and I'm going to like to submit this to the ministry and have it on file so that in future social workers that have to deal with this case could see that the bond we have with the grandchildren is there.
Joining us now is that hunger striking grandpa, Lauren. Lauren, are you there? Yes. Hey.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us. So, you got an update that you now are going to get to see the grandsons that you've been fighting. You've got supervised visitation scheduled with them?
Yes.
Why, doesn't make any sense to me, why is it supervised? Why have you been told?
There was no real answer. I believe it probably has to do with my son, though, partially, because he has no visitation with them unless it's supervised, but they're allowing that now also, so I don't understand about the supervision. I questioned it and tried to get answers, but there was no answers.
So your issue, your grandsons, we should say, they lived with you for an amount of time when your son and the grandson's mother were together. That couple split. There was violence involved. Your son served time for that violence. The grandkids are now living with mother's family members. And if my understanding is correct, it's kind of at their whim as to whether or not you get to see or talk to the kids. And there's nothing that guarantees you any sort of visitations or rights. Is that, in a nutshell, what's going on?
Yes.
So
we did have calls where we could say goodnight 3 times a week, and for some reason those got canceled also. So today from 11 to 3 we have one grandson. The other one couldn't make it because he's feeling ill. But I am grateful for the visit today. But when I made my last video, I stated that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we still have a ways to go to get everything resolved.
So most provinces, including British Columbia, have legislation that guarantees grandparents access to their grandchildren. Why have you not gone to court for that?
Actually, I just got a call back from the grandparents group last Friday, and they informed me of my rights and everything, and they asked me if I would be seeking legal help. I tried to go through all the legal avenues or avenues for us that are open. I wanted to deal with it and without going to court, but if that's what I have to do, I'll do it.
You've been critical of Nisga'a Nation Child and Family Services, saying that they're not doing enough to make sure that families stay connected. You've shared some text messages with us from Nisga'a CFS. They say that they're going to help you through sort of a family skills program. What is all of that?
I think they're reaching out and trying to get the chiefs and matriarchs of the tribes involved, more of a cultural aspect to try to, similar to the that group we were talking about where they sit around restorative justice.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to that style, but with the chiefs and matriarchs of the tribes involved, invited to take part.
So this is, I mean, is this something, how do you think that it would be received in your community if something like that happened? I mean, what we're talking about today is that these things don't seem to exist. There's restorative justice for, you know, if there's a matter where there's a perpetrator and a victim of a crime, those things exist in a lot of our communities, but there doesn't seem to be anything for families with regards to accessing kids, sharing custody, that sort of thing. Do you think it's overdue, something like this comes up?
Yes, I really do. A lot of the issues dealing with the children, specifically the children, they don't know their rights and the situations they're in. They need an advocate voice to be there and relay their feelings and thoughts and everything on what they're going through. It's all about the children. It has nothing to do with myself or anything. I'm just trying to see that their rights are adhered to and that they could get out of the system. I don't want them to be in a system that I believe is more harmful than good. It'd be better to get them out of a situation like that as soon as possible and move forward.
Well, the NISGA CFS said those children aren't in, your grandkids aren't in care. They are in the, they live with and have caregivers who are from their mother's side of the family, but these are not, the kids aren't wards of an agency or anything, or wards of the province. I guess, what is going to make you end your hunger strike?
Well, today I thought, because my grandchildren are here and I'm so happy to see them, I'm thinking about having solid foods again today. And I also stated, though, that if there's no progress or any movement within appropriate time, then I will continue on. I will start all over again and continue again.
Yeah, and you said you're on day 22 of your hunger strike, that's right?
Yes.
What's been the, and you've taken this to social media, what's been the feedback that you've received from across the country?
Oh, it's been overwhelming. I've got support from everywhere in Canada. I've even got messages from New York State and the United States. Everyone encouraging me, giving me, sending me their prayers, and just saying that they're happy that someone is willing to stand up and fight for what they can't.
Were you surprised by how many people share similar stories?
Yes, yes. There's a lot in this area that messaged me and said they wish they had power to speak like I do, and I just said, well, just make sure that you keep all your information, keep a daily diary. You go to any meetings, make sure you have a witness. This will all help you in the long run. Reach out to the agency that could assist you. Go to the media if you have to make things move. I'm really sad that I took 22 days for the media to get involved, but I'm very grateful and happy that APTN stepped up and are doing my story. I'm greatly appreciative of that.
Well, it's an issue that I think is under discussed. You know, whether it being parents fighting over custody and access and visitation, or grandparents. I guess, should this be something that more? I mean, a lot of communities have child welfare agencies. You know, and they seem to focus on protection and apprehension. Is this something that you would be advocating for, this to be sort of a department within a nation's child and family services organization?
Yes, I think we need a body different than the ministry, that's close to everything but could make good and positive decisions if they don't agree with what the ministry is doing. I would agree with something like that if anything was ever introduced in that way.
Well, Lauren, I thank you for taking the time to chat with us today, just to kick off the discussion that we're having about this very topic. You take care of yourself, stay healthy, and hopefully this all gets ironed out for you and your family and your grandkids.
Yes, I thank you again for your time, and I will keep you updated just to let you know how things are going or if I have to start up again.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for your time, and Thank you to everyone that has given me support and sent it prayers. God bless you all, and thank you again.
My next guest is an Anishinaabe dad who knows the nightmare of the family court system. Ryan Okobicini is from the Rosa River First Nation in southern Manitoba. He and his ex split, and so began the court battle over their son, who's now 8 years old. He joins us now. Ryan.
Hello.
Hey. So you and your former partner now have 50-50 custody, but that was even a battle to get to that. Can you take us back and give us kind of a breakdown of how the journey went? Nightmare, I suppose you could argue it is more aptly called.
Yeah, nightmare. It started off really rough at first. I guess the big issue is there's always the disagreement where the child is, they believe, to go, right? Mm-hmm. And the family is always, try to argue the issue to who's more capable and who's more of a parent to that child. Mm-hmm. And that's where it started off.
And it divides itself right along family lines for the most part, right? Dad's family is behind him, mom's family is behind her. And I think something that should be discussed is that, there's never anybody, these family court issues are so private. It's just like the mom and the dad come in there with their lawyers, or if they're self-representing, and there's not a community involvement, there's not a family involvement. So it really does kind of keep it just between, a judge and some lawyers and the parents. Is that useful, or does that create additional problems from your perspective?
I think it creates additional problems. I think if a decision's made, I think it has to be made between the families, because, the child needs both parents, right? And you need most of the family involved to raise the child. And that's what I believe.
So walk us through how many years were you guys embroiled in the family court issue just to even get the 50-50 custody?
It's been 2 years.
2 years. And then there's been problems. So you would think after 2 years, when it's all hammered out what the custody agreement's going to look like, that's kind of the end of it. Everybody washes their hands and moves on and lives with it. But that's not been the case that you've seen either. These frustrations with enforcing the order. Can you share with us a little bit what's going on with that?
Yes. Well, it started off with our lawyers. We had our interim agreements. And enforcing the interim agreements, I called the police many times on it, and they don't want to get involved. And so I was redirected to Child Family Services, to which they didn't want to get involved as well, too, saying they don't get involved with child custody issues. But they found loopholes where they can use Child Family Services anyway and still make their case on that.
That's another thing I was just talking with Lauren about. Is this something that we've got, in Manitoba, 23 child family service agencies here. Most of them are Indigenous. They come from our communities. Is this something that they say, well, we don't get involved in child custody things. Is it something that they should be involved in?
That's a tough question. It's hard to say because sometimes they're good and sometimes they're on the other side. So it's hard to really say if them being involved is a good thing. So I don't know.
I guess that would have to be part of the whole overhaul of that system too, to maybe change the perspective on how they look at what their role is in something. Can you imagine if it was like that they were here to build something or to help families? That would be maybe part of the solution. I'd be curious, as to your thoughts on First Nations creating bodies where it's like if you two band members are separating. I guess this wouldn't be for you necessarily because your partner is not Indigenous. They're not a member of the Rosa River First Nation. But say people who are separating, they are community members. Should a band have some sort of something in place where it's like we have a process where we facilitate how this couple is going to split up and how their parenting is going to unfold from this part. And it's got community members, elders, both sides of the family. Could you see something like that working, or how would you see it working?
I think something like that would help. I mean, the whole process of going through this breakup or any custody agreement like that, custody issues, always tend to be like very reckless and like very hard for the children as well, and for the parents. But having other people involved that to advocate for you, to speak for you, to be like just someone standing behind you, going through this whole process to, be the mediator to, kind of keep the peace in between the parents.
Yeah.
I think something like that would be a good idea.
Kind of shocking that it's not happening in more places. I mean, if we have restorative justice, it seems like this would be something that would kind of go hand in hand with that. I'm surprised it hasn't already. So give us an update. How are things for you now? What's the situation for you now? You guys are living like fairly far apart. Give us a little glimpse into how it works week on and week off for you guys.
It's been better now. I mean, after 2 years of going through all that, I get to see my son for a week and just trying to rebuild the bond that we kind of lost there for months, and trying to keep the peace between his mother and I. And it's been better, and it's I guess you feel more. I feel more secure now having the judge signing off on this whole court situation here with our custody battle. So I feel much better about it.
Yeah. What advice do you have for moms and dads out there who are just at the beginning of this and have to sort out these custody issues? What did you learn from it?
Oh, never use a child to attack one another. It's really tough, Like you try to start things out before going to court. I mean, if you start going to court, you have, I guess, the court system deciding on how you can be a parent and your guidelines and all that. I mean, it's terrible, right? You don't want anybody looking over your shoulder and telling you how to be a father or a mother, right? Mm-hmm.
It's so true. And I mean, it's having to go to a court and go to a judge and have a judge tell you how, your child is going to be parented and who's going to be responsible for what. I mean, that alone doesn't really, work out. Our people's dealings with the court system don't usually work out in our favor. I don't think that's a news flash. Well, thank you, and I'm glad to hear that things have evolved a little bit and things are moving forward. You guys went through, I know it was a couple years that it took to get there, but there's, I guess, some hope, some light at the end of the tunnel for other people who are going through what you went through, and we thank you for taking the time to share that with us, Ryan.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you have a great day.
You too.
We have to take a break, but when we come back, we'll talk to a Simcoe mother whose custody nightmare is probably the worst I've ever heard, like the worst of the worst. A judicial complaint, human rights complaints. There's so many twists and turns to what this woman endured. She's here to share with us and has advice in hopes that it doesn't happen to somebody else. And her experience has her wanting to advocate and support others. You do not want to miss her story. Stay with us.
Join our conversation now. Call in toll-free at 1-877-647-2786. Like us on Facebook on our APTN News page. Follow or tweet us at APTN InFocus. And send your thoughts to infocus@aptn.ca.
Welcome back. We often hear stories, and here at APTN we often tell stories about Indigenous people faring terribly in family court or any colonial court, really. Poverty, lack of education, various traumas are factors, obviously, in that, plus systemic racism. But what about those who are ultra-educated, they're articulate, they have powerful jobs? Do those Indigenous parents fare better? Well, my next guest is proof that no, that does not seem to help. Cheryl Matthew has a resume longer than my leg. She's worked with Indigenous Services Canada as the Assistant Manager of Child and Family Services Jurisdiction, Service Canada as the BC Manager of Indigenous Skills and Employment Training Program. She's worked for the National Inquiry for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls and the Justice Institute of BC. She's taken all of that experience and she started her own company, Indigenous Policy Research Solutions. I tell you all of that because if what happened to her can happen to her, it can surely happen to any of us. Cheryl Matthew joins us now. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Melissa.
Hey,
thanks for having me.
I'm so happy that you could join us. You know, your story, which I'd first heard, I think it was back in June. I lost a lot of sleep over it. It was one of those gut-wrenching stories. It's like we got to find a way to tell this story. But there's so much to it that it was a matter of finding, how do you boil it all down So I'm glad that we have a whole block of this show that we could finally do that. So your story begins in family court, custody over your toddler daughter. She's the youngest of your 3 girls. In a nutshell, what did you learn very quickly in the process as you were going through it as an Indigenous mother in court with a non-Indigenous father?
I think that there was, as you said, it's quite long and complicated, but there was a few things that really went wrong. When it first started, first of all, it was interactions with the RCMP and just not being treated fairly, experiencing a lot of discrimination. And the problem with this is it's so easy for non-Indigenous people to racially profile us as Indigenous people. So to the RCMP and then later to the courts, that seemed to happen consistently.
Well, and I want to stop there. So the RCMP were involved because there was issues of abuse, domestic abuse, and that's why they became involved. Is that right? So what was the problem with the RCMP? You said that you learned quickly that they didn't take some things seriously, and then being stereotyped. So the defense, when somebody is on the defensive about being accused of abuse, then they turn things around and. I know you were definitely stereotyped and a little bit of a tale was spun. So if you can share some of that with us.
Sure, absolutely. It was unfortunate because we, with my daughters and I, we had to leave the relationship because of the abuse that was involved. And I had reached out to go to the North Van RCMP in particular and get a peace bond so that things weren't so complicated as getting a protection order. I had read that was sort of a better way to do it. But they actually didn't even believe me, and even though I had to go in for an interview, etc. And then I actually did file a complaint, a human rights complaint, and then which was refused, and they said that I had to go through the civilian complaints believe it's Civilian Complaints Commission. I don't know, it's a long acronym, but and then they just kept asking question after question for months, to the point that at this point I'm just frustrated because it's gone nowhere. Because that's why I didn't want to file with the civilian review to begin with, because this is what I heard, that it's almost pointless. That's why I had originally filed with the Canadian Human Rights Commission.
Yeah.
So that's been ongoing. I actually just heard recently that the Canadian Human Rights Commission is they've just assigned a mediator. So this is stemming from events from 2018, and it's now 2 years later, and now finally throughout. So, I guess there's a little bit of progress, but to me, I have considered actually withdrawing that because it's exhausting as a parent. I'm a single parent to 3 children. I have a career, I do a lot of volunteer work in the community, and I just actually help advocate. So people call me, people Facebook me, they need advice, and that's, I think, a huge thing that I've taken out of this. As an Indigenous person, we're just left alone, and thankfully there's been a few advocacy organizations, but in general, except for a few organizations, and yourself, Melissa, having just listening to me, because people always chalk this up to, it's just a bad divorce, or it's just a divorce gone wrong, or a bad breakup. It's like, no, I can handle a bad breakup, but what happened to me with the RCMP within the courts, both provincial and Supreme Court, that is not normal. It is not normal, and that's why I'm here today, is because we need to support each other, and we need to stand up.
Yeah.
As Indigenous women and as Indigenous people.
The process you guys went through, there was back and forth. Your ex is not a Canadian; he is an American who's living in Canada. Just to give our audience a little bit of a rundown, he was saying, for the custody, when you would have your daughter for a week and he would have the daughter for a week, you were supposed to stay in the Greater Vancouver area, right? He was adamant about that. No going back to your home territory where your daughter could connect with her culture and her roots there. Dad opposed that, wants your daughter to have no connection to those roots. A judge signed off on all of this. A judge sided with him.
Yeah, and this is where it got and has gotten really bad. At first, we did go through a 4-day trial in provincial court, and that was quite fair, and I was happy with our final order. However, my ex has continually gone for ex parte orders in both courts, in provincial and in Supreme. And what happened, I guess, most recently, over like sort of last spring, last summer, is he went for 2 ex parte orders in Supreme Court, and he actually got 2 ex parte orders. Ex parte means that I'm not there to speak for myself. My lawyer wasn't advised. I wasn't advised. And he basically racially profiled me and said that my daughter was like that there was potential physical abuse, that I was kidnapping her, bringing her to Kelowna because I was living half-time in Kelowna and half-time in Vancouver at the time working. And he said that I was basically a single Indigenous mom. I didn't have the means to travel back and forth from Vancouver to Kelowna, and that I was basically going to kidnap my daughter. So that to me is really shocking, because 2 judges believed that, and then there was like accusations of child abuse, which that has never happened. I've raised 3 brilliant, beautiful daughters, and if anything, I've done everything that I can to protect my children. And so when that happened, I lost Sophia for 105 days because of that, and it took that long to go back to get the affidavits, and then the court shut down for COVID. It was absolutely horrible. So not only did I have to deal with losing my youngest daughter, who's 3, and that was heartbreaking. And I know so many other Indigenous parents, and parents in general, can relate to that. But I hadn't done anything. I wasn't going to kidnap her. I've never once not delivered Sophia on time and as agreed. So to me, that 2 judges in Supreme Court could actually listen and believe this just because he said, oh, I'm Indigenous, he used words like unstable, that I didn't have the means to travel back and forth. Meanwhile, I had supported our entire family because he didn't work. So none of that was even true. Had I been given even 5 minutes, and then I could have like even explained this. But no, my daughter was taken for 105 days, and I'm not going to rest, because those 105 days are a nightmare for me. Like it's traumatic. Yeah. My daughter was I don't think she wasn't even 3 years old. And then he wouldn't even schedule time for me to see her, and I missed her 3rd birthday. He wouldn't even let me see her on her birthday. Gross. So just to really kind of to the other thing that you mentioned is the October 2018 order from Judge Challenger. That happened in provincial court in North Van. And because my ex, I had never once delivered my daughter. I was living back and forth between Vancouver and West Kelowna. However, I drove back and forth. I would drive back, I would pick Sophia up on Fridays, and then I would drop her off on the Friday and then go back to Kelowna. Now, I had even informed my ex, because in our final order we were allowed to travel for up to 14 days. And because me and my daughters have dual citizenship for the U.S., that we were allowed, because we used to go camping in Point Roberts and, various areas, and we would often go to the interior because we're from First Nation. So my daughters are, except for Sophia, me and my daughters go there regularly. We have a family farm there. That's where I grew up. We love it. Our Scalia, which is the sweat house, that's the location of our Scalia, which is out by the North Thompson River. So this is a place of huge importance to us. Sophia's never even been there because of all this back and forth. And now, since October 2019, I haven't been able to take Sophia outside of the Lower Mainland. Because
of a judge. Like a judge said, no, she cannot go and have her culture there.
Yes.
I'm banning it. Okay,
exactly.
I want to get back to that, and I want to talk to you about what's going on. You had filed a complaint about the judge, but we have a caller here, Jan from BC. Jan, are you there?
Yeah.
Hey, Jan, did you have a question or a comment?
No, I just thought I'd call because join your guys' talk about the situation. I'm also dealing with my court cases. The grandmother applied for 5401. Took 2 years. She finally got her 5401 because my lawyer suggested to go under the Family Law Act. So now I'm in the middle of this court case.
Trying to get
family law.
This is trying to get access to your children?
Yeah.
How many kids?
Just the one daughter, but she's with the great grandmother at the time. But you know, I was in a battle for the 5401 with her for a long time. But and yeah, at the time I didn't know what was going on at the time. I finally was aware of the court, and then I started getting involved in what was going on with the daughter. And I started watching the show when you were talking about mothers like losing their kid and ended up doing drugs and committing suicide and stuff. Kind of like started watching you guys from then, and I was like, I might as well call, right? But I'm in the middle of a court case with the Family Law Act, and I've been through the ringer so many times with the courts and jumping through every single loophole that they put in front of me, filling out every single paper and doing anything that they request, you know. And
are you seeing your child now? Like, do you have visitation, or do you have custody, or is that still ongoing?
The thing is I'm definitely wanting to visit. I even put custody in there because, you know, I feel like they're doing more harm than good, putting her in a home and she doesn't know who her dad is, right? And so I'm at that point, you know, and not many people know that I'm going through this battle with the courts. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Can I just get you to just hit pause there for 2 seconds, Jen? I just want to say, it looks like we've lost Cheryl from our Skype. I'm just wondering if we can maybe call Cheryl and get her back on, because I have to wrap up a couple of things with her, even if we can just do it by phone. I love the pandemic way of doing things nowadays. Everything's remotely, and Skype doesn't always work. So we're just going to give Cheryl a call and get her back on the line so we can finish up with Cheryl. But so, Jan, what's the next step for you? Like, where are you? Are you back in court anytime soon? What's you know
they're calling me doing courts by call, but you know, like as soon as I get my my call and to go to court, I'm going to go to court, and I'm hoping like these judges, like they all know me, they know what I'm going through. Like people know I deserve these visits. I'm not going to stop fighting for my visits, even for custody. You know, I'm going to keep going, and if I can make a suggestion to the guys out there with dealing with the same thing, don't stop fighting. You know.
Yeah. Well, I hope it works out in the best interest of you and the. I hope it works out in the best interest of you and also your child too. It's. I'm just one quick other question. Do you think that something, you know, if our nations had something set up so, you know, to kind of advocate to make sure that parents and you know, either share custody well or have access. You know, would that be better than going through the colonial court system?
Well, yeah, like with my case, it would be far better having 50% custody of the child, so at least the child is getting to know both sides of the family, you know.
Right.
Like I didn't get a chance for the kid to meet my grandma or my mom, right? Or my sisters, her aunties, her uncles. Like, she didn't get that chance. She, you know, she probably just knows who I am. Yeah. I'm still going to fight for these visits, so I'm not stopping.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking the time to give us a shout today and share your story with us. We have to take another break, but when we come back, I'll introduce you to. Oh, wait! Before we go to break, we have Cheryl back.
Yeah.
We don't have Cheryl back. It's okay. We'll deal with Cheryl when we come back from the break. So we will go to a break right now. Have Cheryl when we come back. I also have a Mohawk mediator who offers alternatives to the colonial way that we've been told that we have to sort out child custody issues. He's a really fascinating man, has incredible advice. He's going to join us too. Stay with us. welcome back. We had some technical problems with Cheryl Matthew, who we had on, had joined us by Skype, sharing with her her story of going through family court, the nightmare that she went through. We did get her back. We couldn't get her back on Skype, but we have her on the phone. We're just going to wrap up with her. Cheryl, thanks. Sorry about the technical difficulties. This is, I guess, the way the world works now, though. Hey. So when we were talking before the break, there was a judge, a BC provincial court judge, who agreed with your ex, saying, no, this little girl, this toddler, daughter of yours, doesn't need any connection to her culture, to her territory, agreed with the dad to ban you from taking her there. Are you allowed to travel yet? And there was you filed complaints against the judge. Where'd that go?
That's actually really sad as well, because I did file an appeal, and then my previous lawyer had agreed with North End Provincial Court and that judge to go back and be heard in provincial court, not in Supreme Court. And the judge had said that they would hear me and they would hear our case, but we had to withdraw the appeal. So my previous lawyer did do that, and then they came back and said that they wouldn't hear us. So now, and that there's a timeline for filing an appeal, and because now it's past the 1-year deadline, it's too late. So that to me was very underhanded, like the whole system, the way it's set up, and because you expect that a judge will be honorable and will be fair, and I haven't experienced that at all. So now I'm stuck with this order, and it's no longer under appeal, and so I'm trying to figure out with my new lawyer how to move forward. So we do finally have a court date at the end of January, like a 2-day hearing, but I'm not even sure. I mean, I think the strange thing about it was an interim order that she made, that I can't remove Sophia from the Lower Mainland, which means we're completely cut off. Yeah, culture, and no one can even understand this. And I have to say that there were fair judges, and all of the judges up until that point had really agreed and had made sure that we were allowed to travel back to the First Nation. I always said in court, we're First Nations, we maintain a farm out there where we grew up, and they always, that's why previous in our final order, it said we had 14 days. Right. Unless we were traveling for more than 14 days, that was the only time that we even had to advise my ex. So that to me is just really frustrating. So now I'm still stuck with it. And honestly, I don't even know if it can be changed, like at this point. And that was an interim order. So she shouldn't have actually even been making orders on my case, because it had been, there was already an appeal for my ex. So to me, jurisdictional quagmires when it comes to children and being an Indigenous parent, first we have to deal with being racially profiled, the discrimination. We walk into the court, no matter what we say or how successful or all of the things that we've done, they always have this image of us. So my ex uses that to say, oh, she's this, she's that, she's a bad mom. I'm none of those things, but because they already believe these things, it becomes you're fighting an almost impossible battle. Yeah.
Keep us posted what happens when you go back to court. You know how to get a hold of me. I'd like to find out how this all goes from here. Maybe somebody will right kind of the wrongs that have already happened. Fingers crossed for you. I got to switch over.
Melissa, before you go, I just had a few things I wanted to say regarding the solutions piece.
Yes.
Can I get like 1 minute? I'm just going to run through this.
Run through them.
Okay. The first is judges really need to have Indigenous reconciliation training and trauma-informed practice training. Yeah. And we really do need a restorative justice family court, not just for criminal law.
I would love to see that.
And I felt, very alone, and we need more women's organizations, advocates. The Vancouver Aboriginal Community Policing Center, Kukui Christian UBCIC helped me a lot along the way. If it wasn't for them, we can't feel alone, and we have to know that we have people. Over the last couple of months, myself and a number of other Indigenous leaders have started an organization called poisebc.ca, and we're working on all of these initiatives. It's poissbc.ca. Perfect. And one of the really tragic things is that judges have immunity. So for my Canadian, I actually filed with the Canadian Human Rights Commission and the BC Human Rights Tribunal, and they just sent me form letters saying, oh, judges have immunity, so there's nothing that we can do. I think the other one, we talked about this yesterday, is really implementing both the MMIWG, the calls for action, and the TRC. And then really it's, we need more Indigenous judges. And then one of the other things I want to say is here in BC, they actually passed the BC Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the 10 Principles. However, I've asked the Attorney General, and he won't meet with me, and I've talked to every minister, even my own representative for Vancouver Hastings, to say, hey, why doesn't this apply to judges as well? Why do we even have this? And reconciliation has to start in the courts. That is probably the most important place.
So true.
And right now it's not, and I can't even get an answer because it seems to apply elsewhere and they're still implementing it. But I don't even think that they're going to make it apply to the legal system, to judges. So just my last note is just in terms of the RCMP, the civilian review is just not cutting it. And as Indigenous people, we really need to be able to file under the Canadian Human Rights Commission, and they'll just they just bounce back and forth. They'll just bounce it back to them, and then now it's bounced back to each one not wanting to take jurisdiction. So really,
I got to cut you off there, Cheryl. We got to go. We're running out of time rapidly here. Thank you for joining us, and keep us posted as to how it all shakes down. Jim Duckstader has spent a lot of time in family court. He's an Indigenous dispute resolution facilitator and trainer, a restorative justice facilitator and trainer, and a child protection mediator. But he's also a divorced parent, so he knows the colonial court system as a father, too. He's Mohawk from Six Nations. He joins us now. Jim, thanks for joining us. So give us a little bit of background on the work that you do, so we can get a sense of what we could be doing in terms of using this for family court purposes, but in a more traditional way.
Just a little up front, Cuban Nation, Wolf Clan, Haudenosaunee Six Nations, so not Mohawk, and that's very important.
Yes, sorry, I don't know. I had it in my head, Mohawk mediator, probably because it sounds. But thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, it's okay. So, your question, I guess, why doesn't family court work for our people? It's a system of oppression. It's meant to shuffle you in, get things settled really fast, move you out, and carry on with your business. The issue for our people is that we're in conflict. We have trauma, widespread trauma. To use a phrase that a mentor of mine uses, Dr. Rick Hill, he talks about an ethno-stress being over top of us all. And whether we're down here and whether or not we think it's been affected us or we think we are affected, all of them around. So that system in itself is traumatizing in a lot of ways. And it leans towards if you're non-Indigenous. The special provisions that we look for as Indigenous people might be to have our children during ceremonies, have our children during these special times that aren't Christian holidays. And the willingness even to talk about that is so low. They don't understand it, right? And the importance of it. So.
Well, and we were talking before, a lot of these things don't have a specific date. Like in 2022, this, ceremony that to be observed, there's not a date set for that right now, right? And courts, the white court system just looks and says, well, if you don't have a hard, fast date for it, then I'm not considering it. So why, we were talking earlier in the show, there's restorative justice programs if you're involved with a criminal matter where, you're the perpetrator and you're the victim. Our communities have, many of our communities have mechanisms to deal with situations like that. Why don't we have anything for when people are divorcing, when couples are separating?
There seems to be a lack of, I'll say, will by the court system, by judges, lawyers, whatever, to remove those access and custody cases of Indigenous children and parents, families, out of the system and deal with it over here. This is where I come in as a family mediator. You know, I deal with parents all the time that I'm getting them at the end. And when I get them at the end, you know, they've been dehumanized already. They've been talked to like their words don't matter, like their issues don't matter. And by the time they get to me, it's almost like another little keg bombshell going off. And for me, I exercise a Indigenous dispute resolution model of child protection or mediation. And essentially what that means is that I want to find out with you all that's happened right from the start. No judgment, no, you know, there's no negative thing attached to it. But essentially we're looking at it like a puzzle. How do we move forward given what's happened? Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about trauma, a big part of that is talking about healing. And that's really the key components to it. And it's a component that they don't talk about.
Oh, I think we lost Jim. We lost Jim. We'll see if we can get Jim. Oh, I see him flickering over there on the side. Our Skype is not our friend today. It doesn't appear. Yeah, okay. So, oh, there's Jim. Can we hear him, though?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Jim, we glitched out a little bit, but we have you back. Oh. Sorry to interrupt. Okay. You were on a roll there.
Yeah, well, it's just talking about the understanding that people don't get, and you have to explain. You know, myself, you know, I'm the son of parents that were in residential school. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to, you know, there's no real part to that I'm going to point to and say that's why all these problems have gone on. But it's more the whole life that has gone on with all that around and the people around. You really get used to trauma. You get used to violence. You get used to all these things that happen. And then when you go over to another place and how you react, how you, you know, just your answers, they're judged on that Western idea.
Yeah.
Right? They don't look into it.
Do you work with parents? I mean, have you, and I guess the system as it is now, it has to, everything has to get rubber stamped by a judge. But have you worked with any parents where you sit down and you hash it out? What's this co-parenting going to look like? So then you can at least just go to the white court system and they can rubber stamp it. Is that happening, or have you heard of it happening?
Oh, it happens. And that's that. I mean, my goal, every client that comes by my Zoom channel nowadays, we aim to come up with a complete agreement. That way that they never would have to step into court. They don't have to engage in that system. And this is where, you know, in our communities, we really have to be pushing for mediation, restorative practices. Restorative practice, like you say, involves when, you know, criminal systems, right? Now, restorative practices in child protection or family law basically can be the same principles. We want to find out all that happened. We want to hear it. We want to be there with you to show you we understand this, and here's the way out. Because many of us, and I'm not the only person that to child protection.
Yeah. Can you help out? I mean, it's not just people in your community where you're based. You could hypothetically help people anywhere. Is that right? Oh, I think we've got him frozen again. Jim's frozen again. You know what? We are going to say goodbye now. We don't have Jim, but go to our website. We'll have how you can get in touch with Jim if something like a service he offers appeals to you and to your separating partner. We can hook you up. So yesterday marked the 5th anniversary of the day the Truth and Reconciliation Commission final report was unveiled. We had the commissioners on our show for the first time since that final report was delivered with a very special edition of InFocus. I'm Melissa Ridge, and I'm going to leave you now with some of the highlights from yesterday's show. Have a great afternoon.
When the commission ended, we emphasized that two things were crucial to our findings and the implementation of the 94 calls to action. Those two things are the adoption and implementation of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples as a framework for reconciliation. and the establishment of a National Council for Reconciliation as an independent body to track and report progress on all aspects of Canada's path to reconciliation. Implementing the UN Declaration should be a priority for all Canadians. Reconciliation is not a partisan issue. This work is the responsibility of everybody.
I know that as we look forward to the next 5 years, we will see more efforts towards answering our calls to action. We must keep this at the forefront of our agendas. Speaking as a former residential school student, it is critical that we do not lose momentum now. Every act of truth and reconciliation serves to heal the many deep wounds inflicted on by the experience of the residential schools. At the same time, every act of dishonesty or dishonor